I've got 4 more topics and 15 minutes. Okay, all these 4 topics are about civil society. All right, let me go through them. I'll go through them quickly. Each of these topics comes from one part of the second volume. So there are 4 parts. And the first part is about how democracy affects the intellect. The intellect, the mind. And the first chapter is about the philosophical method of the Americans. Tocqueville says there's less attention to philosophy in America than anywhere in the civilized world. Yet all Americans have a uniform method for intellectual inquiries, which means reliance on individual effort and judgment. And this is the great principle of the philosopher Descartes, a French philosopher whom no Americans have read, but they all behave as if they've read him. So Descartes is the least read and most followed philosopher in America. Now, what is Descartes' main principle? It's anti-authority. Don't listen to authority. Always question. Philosophy means doubt. But Americans believe in Descartes implicitly. They've never even read him. So they're against authority, but they've never read their arguments for being against authority. Therefore, they accept Descartes as an authority. So it's a paradox. He's a kind of anti-authoritarian authority. And the Americans, he's making fun of Americans in a way. But they're so proud. They're so proud of being against authority. I'm against authority. You know, people have these bumper stickers which say, "Question authority." This was especially from the late '60s. Question authority. But on what authority should they question authority? Have you read Descartes? No. So, but the trouble is, if you're free, you want to act freely. And if you act freely, you must stop doubting, because you have to be sure that what you're doing is worth doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't get up in the morning. You wake up and say, well, shall I get up? Well, why? Is my life worth living? You know? So at some point, even if you're a very wise philosopher, you have to say, I'm not questioning this anymore. I'm going to assume that it's worthwhile to be alive. I mean, that's really a questionable thing. But so you believe. You bring your doubt to a close. And you accept some authority. So that's the main trouble with Americans doubt. See? If you don't doubt, then you're not relying on your own individual reason. You're not free. But if you do doubt, then you're questioning, and there's no end to it. So finally, you have to act. See? The children need supper, so you make supper for them. And that's and that seems to be unfree, because you haven't got a good reason for it. That's the problem of the American mind. That's number one. This is in the second part. It's about sentiments. The first one is about ideas, first part. Now it's about sentiments. How you think of yourself. Tocqueville talks about individualism. He says Democrats love equality much more than they love freedom. You can imagine an extreme point where everybody who is equal is free, and everybody who is free is equal. But for the most part, equality and freedom aren't attractive in the same way. Equality is much more attractive because it suggests that the things that are right in front of you are the most worth having. Immediate pleasures, material pleasures. If you don't have any belief in somebody else's authority, and you're doubtful of yourself, then you say, well, what I know best is what's right in front of me. So, going back to the supper example, supper or lunch is good. That's what surely no one can question. You don't need a philosophical principle. So material pleasures come to dominate democracy because that's what equality leads to. Whereas freedom is difficult. Freedom is easier to lose than equality. But it's also easy to see the excesses of freedom, that when people carry their freedom too far, say crime, violence, various kinds of criminality, the benefits of freedom are seen only in time. After a while, oh, you see, now it's good that we have a working government now. Whereas equality, the benefits of equality are right there always. Political liberty is a sublime pleasure to a few, whereas equality brings a host of small enjoyments daily. The little pleasures of life, like the meals and the habits that you have, the walks, reading books, turning on TV, all these things are pleasant. As Americans like to say, life is good. Well, they often say that after they've done something trivial. Life is good. I just drunk a beer. And also political liberty requires sacrifice, whereas equality, free pleasures, are very inexpensive pleasures. So the result is individualism. That's a word not invented by Tocqueville, but he's responsible for defining it. Today, when Americans say individualism, they usually mean something good. And they like to put the word rugged in front of individualism. That means you're rough and you're ready and you can defend yourself. And yes, you've got a gun that helps you to do it. So that makes you an individual, and your individualism is good. But for Tocqueville, it's bad. And he distinguishes individualism from selfishness. Selfishness is an exaggerated love of your own self, vain. You're passionate about it, a sentiment. But individualism is peaceable and reflective, in which each person isolates himself from the mass. In a democracy, you're in a mass. You're equally in a mass. And you look at this mass, and you can't see that you can do anything. You feel impotent. And moreover, you read these social scientists, say, who tell you that you can't really control your life. You're the victim of large historical forces. Marx is an example of this. Historical materialism. We are where we are. We can't do anything about it. So what's the reaction? So you withdraw into yourself and a few of your friends and your family, and you forget political liberty. You don't participate in politics or care about politics because you don't think you can achieve anything by going into politics. So this is individualism, and it's much more a danger of democracy or of equality than any other. It's the consequence of a bad judgment. You judge that you're incapable or impotent, nothing you can accomplish. It's not a bad sentiment or selfishness. Selfishness you can find in any people, in any person maybe. That's universal, that's a part of human nature, but individualism comes at a certain stage of modern democracy, when modern democracy has lost its belief in itself. It doesn't believe that people can control their lives and their government anymore. Well, we've got two more. One is on women. I'll leave that to you, because there, Tocqueville gives a kind of idyllic presentation of American women, which no longer is the case, no longer applies. He says that Americans believe that men and women are equal, but they have totally different fates. And the woman, it's her destiny or fate to be in her family to be married. Because Americans have a democratic family, they don't have much family authority. Therefore, girls have a very free education, and they learn to be independent and to use their reason, and and behave moderately or modestly, and that's because they have lots of experience in the world. That means with the immoderation of men, you could say, and men are after them. So you know this, and you use your reason to guide your life, even as a girl. But when you get married, then you accept the bonds of matrimony, and you suddenly become chaste and very careful. The American woman, he says, is sad and resolute, like these pioneer women, see, who go with their husbands into the wilderness to cut down all those trees to build a house, and then move still further because these kind of people didn't want to live in settled territory. They wanted always to be on the fringe. So they would abandon the house which they built with such terrible labor, and then their wives have to follow them to further into the woods to build another house. So that's a difficult life. And yet Tocqueville has this high praise for American women. He says that American women are superior. It's unclear whether they're superior to American men or superior to women elsewhere. But anyway, we owe our success as a country to the virtue, the manly virtue, he even says, of American women. So that's a terrific thing. It isn't compatible with modern feminism at all, which wants men and women to be equal by being as much as possible the same. I mean, that's the latest principle. And so when the feminists read Tocqueville, they think that no, he's very anti-woman. And then the last point on mild despotism. What sort of, this is in the part 4 in chapter 6, what sort of despotism democratic nations have to fear? And that's not harsh despotism, but it's soft or mild despotism, which is quite compatible with the sovereignty of the people. And it's mild, it's harsh. You don't feel that it's oppressive. But you, suffering from individualism, you withdraw to your own life and the life of your friends and family and pay no attention to politics. So politics is taken over by the immense being, he calls it, être immense in French, of the government. What Americans call big government, which becomes responsible for you and makes decisions for you and brings benefits for you. So it doesn't hurt you, and you don't get angry or irritated at you. In fact, it calms you down, makes you feel secure. But the price of this is your freedom. And you're no longer acting freely and voluntarily to govern yourself. And that's what he fears to be the most terrible consequence of modern democracy. It isn't inevitable, but it's probable, or it's a possibility, a strong possibility in all modern democracies, and I think there may be some evidence for him on this. So I end with this brief statement about mild despotism, hoping that both China and America can avoid it.